So, hi there everyone. Welcome to the silver lining of this semester, VGDA Spring 2016, Week 1. Shut up. I was talking, whatever. Fall. Yeah! There will be no more hitches, I promise. All right, yeah, get them out ahead of time, that's right. All right.
We'll get that in post.
It's an iterative process. Okay, cool. So, I see a lot of new faces, I see a lot of old faces. Old faces, get some wrinkle cream. So, what is VGDA? Basically, VGDA is an organization where we use game development as a way to teach you skills, give you a way to practice those skills, and we use the interdisciplinary nature of game development to expand your professional network. So you can network with people who are here. There's a few of you, and we also bring in speakers, good stuff like that, so you can meet people out in the world who might hire you. Every semester we design, develop, and publish a new game, start to finish. And we have, again, speakers coming in. And we also network with organizations off campus as well. So we're building ties with UC Irvine, USC, Laguna Art College of Design. So yeah, we're a really good spot to be if you are kind of career motivated. You're trying to get a job really anywhere, anywhere, even if it's not in the game industry. Our former president is now making a lot of money running all of the digital media for the Atlanta Hawks. So he got that shortly after graduating. So pretty good stuff. All right, so who are we? Well, we are people from across all disciplines. We have psychologists, we have writers, film majors, artists, programmers, computer engineers, we have a lot of people. But one thing we have in common is that we see VGDA as a really good way of building up our resumes, one of the best ways on campus, in my opinion, but you know, I'm a little bit biased. One of the best ways of building up the resume on campus, and sorry, I get so ahead of myself. All right, so we come from a huge variety of disciplines, but basically, when it comes to the bottom of it, we're really hardworking nerds. Why should you be a part of this? VGDA is filled with a bunch of highly motivated students. We're all here because we want to get jobs. We're not at, when other people are going to social clubs, things like that, that's fine, those are great, but when other people are going to those clubs, a lot of us are working towards our careers. And that means that since there's a lot of us in here, a lot of us are going to be actually getting those jobs pretty shortly after graduating. One of our former members is now a programmer on the Hearthstone team. He'll probably be coming in and talking to us. We're really excited about that. And yeah, come on in, guys. Join the party. All right. Now you're on the spot. All right. It's not me this time. All right. So the hard work that we put into these games really pays off. It really impresses a lot of people all over the world, literally. We've had a chance to network with people who are developers in England, stuff like that. And they're really impressed with what we do. So it's not nothing. The games that we put on, it's way beyond the scope of what most people think of as student projects, and when you get to say that you're a part of that, it's just a really huge boon for your resume. So as far as what you should expect from VGDA, there are a lot of learning opportunities, but kind of breaks down into being on one of two larger teams. So we have traditionally three groups of people. We have people who come in, hang out, watch our meetings, and that's it. And that's fine. No problem with that whatsoever. There's still a lot of learning that happens there. But the most learning happens if you are either on the development side of things or the administration side of things. So the development side of things is kind of people who are directly involved with the making of the game. The programmers, artists, really whoever. The administration side, they are people who are kind of building up our foundations on like day-to-day practices, building up like our mentorship program, doing outreach, stuff like that. So here I have listed kind of what each of those are expected to do, but really, every semester you will get your name on a game credit. So I have 3 games that I've published since I've started being in VGDA, running VGDA. And the longer you're in VGDA, the more games you get. And if you're coming in as a freshman, you're coming in as a sophomore, really whenever, the more games you have on your resume, that looks great, because you'll just get better and better. So as far as what we expect, VGDA is not an easy thing to do. It takes a lot of work, takes a lot of organization, and making a game is just such a huge, complicated process that it can't be done just on the shoulders of a few people. It does need to be a group effort. So kind of our expectation is about 3 hours of work from everyone, at least a week. Sometimes it's less. For a lot of our members, it's more, quite often. Because a lot of us who are just super passionate about games, and if you start them talking about games, they will not stop. I'm one of them. And this has been a really lifelong dream for us. But if you can do this, you can do 3 hours a week. So like 20 minutes a day, right? Something like that, whatever, close enough. If you can do that, you will have a really polished game at the end of every semester. And not many other students can say that really anywhere, not just at Cal State Long Beach. So there are a lot of people who have trouble making it to our meetings. I know a lot of the people who were on our art team last semester are like all in the same class that happens during this time. So we always get questions about whether or not people can participate even if they can't make it to meetings regularly or ever. And the answer is absolutely yes. Josh Shucker, who is our VP of Development, he started off as a programmer, and he couldn't make it to a single one of our meetings, and he contributed like our top, like he was like second or third in like lines of code that semester that you weren't there. Yeah, so like a lot of work can be done even if you can't come to meetings. The only thing that you can't do if you can't make it to meetings is be an officer, although sometimes we make exceptions for that as well. The way that we keep people up to date, even if you can't be at meetings, is we have just a lot of online stuff going on. So you have a scarily active Facebook group. Emails for everyone, emails for days. Mine is president.vgda@gmail.com. Oh, hi, I'm Nathan. I'm the president. Cool. Done. All right. So, so my email is president.vgda@gmail.com. I answer emails quickly. If you have any questions, that's a good default. Another good default is this one right here, contact.vgda@gmail.com. Both of those are really great sources of information if you're confused about anything. Dates, times, what you should be doing on the administration or on the development side if you ever get lost, you're not getting, you don't know how to contact your lead, anything like that, let us know. We also use a task management software called Trello. So that's another big thing that we focus on, is teaching you how to work in a group. And we have a tutorial that I think will actually just send the video out. Maybe we won't do today because there's like too much information going on.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
It's like
so,
a video, right?
Yeah, so we have a video teaching you how to use Trello really quick. But basically what it is, it's a way of keeping track of what work is getting done, what still needs to get done, what people are having difficulty with getting work done on, and yeah, it just helps us everyone stay in contact.
And everyone gets to hear my awkward voice, so it's awesome.
Yeah, you get to hear his beautiful. Yeah. All right, so we've been hugely successful. We started in spring of 2014. Yeah, fall 2021. Yeah, spring 2014. For me, it's been forever. Like, it's been really ridiculous. All right, so we've been really successful over the course of the last 5 semesters. Last semester we had the leader of the International Game Developers Association come down and talk to us, and she was so impressed by the level of organization that we had that she gave us some tickets to the Game Developer Conference in San Francisco, which is the biggest game developer conference in the world. And when we were there, we kind of like took over some panels that were talking about game development in academia, because everyone else was like, well, these guys are doing some crazy stuff, so I'm gonna like back off and listen to them, because we're one of the few groups that can, or has, led teams of like single giant teams. Like most academic development happens in really small groups, and so the fact that we do it in a large team gives everyone that experience, really impressive. So we were leading some, like I said, we were leading some talks. I got invited back to GDC to continue talking about that next year. And yeah, so that was really awesome. We successfully published new games each of the last 3 semesters. Our first semester was like a half semester, so like it should be a 4.5, not 5. Anyway, so we've brought in a lot of developers over the years, and they've all just been totally blown away by what we've been able to accomplish. The level of organization with so many developers and the amount of work that we're able to get done, they're just super impressed, always. So we've had people like from Blizzard, and we've been talking to people at Blind Squirrel, which is another kind of up-and-coming game developer in the area. It's been just, the amount of things that we do here, just absolutely phenomenal. So, we need leaders for the club, always. That's just one of the kind of downsides of school clubs, is that you have a lot of turnover because people graduate, you'll have class conflicts, and then also their terms are open, so they need to go up for re-election. So these are some of the positions that we have open. These are all on the administration side of things. It's basically the entirety of the administration side of things. So we have the director of outreach, who's kind of like our head of marketing. They make sure that we're building opportunities on and off campus. We have the director of people, who is kind of like HR, kind of making sure that everyone's having it, like enjoying their time in VGDA and getting the most out of it. Director of finances helps plan fundraising and like kind of make sure that we don't spend all of our money on candy. It's a real struggle. Director of operations plans our events, helps us out with other kind of day-to-day program stuff, like our mentorship program, things like that. Director of administration is kind of like the closest that we have to a traditional vice president. They help us with everything that's on the administration side. So they'll help all of the positions that are above it and me make sure that we're actually getting stuff done. You can build a club in your resume, part 2. So we have lead positions open. These are the discipline leads, the people who are going to kind of have creative control over their specific disciplines. So normally we have 5 disciplines. We have art, sound, narrative design, gameplay design, and technical. And the ones that we have that are vacant or up for re-election is we have the art lead, who has creative control over the visual aesthetic of our game. The narrative design lead, who kind of controls what the narrative tone, mood, how that's executed in the story. And the gameplay design lead, who has creative control over the way that the player interacts with our game and how the game interacts with the player. So we'll be having speeches and elections for these positions next week after an interview process. So we have a little interview process just to make sure that everyone's actually running for positions that they're going to be that's actually going to work well for them. Sometimes people run for positions and they find out that's not actually something that's going to be the best for them. So often they end up running for different positions instead. These interviews help us do that for you. So the interviews are going to be happening this Tuesday. The date on that is the 6th. I'll post a date on our Facebook page, which all y'all need to get on. But yeah, so it'll be this Tuesday. Pretty informal affair, but yeah, be a leader, be a superhero. Anyway, but okay.
Why?
Because this is the perk of being president. I get to make bad visual gags. All right, so VGDA have gotten big enough. We're active enough now that we kind of need to have a little bit of money so that we can continue to create better and better opportunities for our members. So we do have a policy of asking for dues for anyone who wants to be on the development or on the administrative side of things. It's $10 a semester. Hopefully that's not too much for anyone. If it is too much, we do try to work with people. You can put it on layaway if you want, 50 cents a week. But yeah, let us know if you have any problems with any of that. Let us know at where? President.vga? Yeah, sure. Contact.vga@gmail.com or president.vga@gmail.com. Either of those are going to be good places. But some of the things we spend money, just so you know, we're not taking it just for candy. We do spend some of it on candy. I'll explain why at a later time. But yeah, we spend it on licenses. So we end up spending about $100+ a year on licenses, just so that we can publish our things in as many stores as possible. Like, we don't sell our game for money, but there's still stores, whatever. Anyway, so development tools that we want to get to make the process of development easier for people. Like we want to get drawing tablets for people. We want to get sound recording equipment for people. All that stuff costs money. We want to have it. It's going to make our games better. It's going to make us better able to do this whole thing. So yeah, not going to lie, some of the money does get spent on candy, but you get the candy, I promise. So it's still for you guys. All right. So how are we doing so far? I see like 4 thumbs up between. Yeah, okay, cool. All right, good. All right, that's enough for me. So as far as how do we make games? Well, first off, we need to have a game. And the way that we get to that point is we allow everyone here to submit a game pitch to try to sell us on a game idea that they've been kind of putting together their whole life because they've always wanted to get in games. Now, I'll talk a little bit about more what those limits are in a sec, but basically what happens is next week we'll hear all the game pitches. The game pitches are due this Sunday. But once we vote on the game pitches, we'll immediately split up into our discipline teams, so all the programmers on one side, all the sound people in the back, and then, wasn't even paying attention. All right, and then all the narrative people and design, gameplay and all that stuff, they're all to be separated out, just so that they can kind of start brainstorming and learning about how they're going to tackle their part of the game. And then the week after that, we'll split up into feature teams, which is a new thing that we're doing, but we'll talk more about that in the next week because it's like just too much. Well, I'll talk a little more about it later, but yeah. All right, so our meetings from then on will basically split into 2 halves. The first half is going to be me, John, at you, and we'll have other updates from the team leads. We'll have other updates from other people in the administration. And then the second half will be more of kind of like a planning session. So you'll be talking with the other people on your team, making sure that you're all going in the right direction, and that everyone's getting the work done and has all the things that they need to get that work done. So, feature teams. This is going to be some of the biggest amount of new information for those of you guys who are coming back. So we're making some big changes here. Feature teams are kind of a new way of developing games. It's creeping into the game development process. And we had 2 weeks before Overwatch launched last semester, we had the lead gameplay programmer on Overwatch come and talk to us. And he told us about this thing, and he was like, it worked for us. So if it works for Blizzard, and they use it to make something awesome, we're going to hope that it helps us make something awesome too. So,
Blame it if it fails.
what's that?
Blame it if it fails. It's fine.
Yeah, we'll blame Blizzard if it fails. All right.
You don't know what you're doing.
So once the discipline leads, so gameplay, narrative, art, technical and sound people, or NATs, as I like to call them. All right, so, or GANTs, that works too. Anyway. All right, so once the discipline teams have kind of organized themselves, we'll split up into feature teams. Feature teams are going to be smaller groups of people that are focused on completing just one aspect of the game, like doing all of the tasks for one aspect of the game. We'll still have our discipline leads, they'll still be involved in everything, but they'll be more making sure that everything in their discipline stays cohesive, so that one feature team isn't like making pixel art and then another person is doing like like Art Nouveau, like crazy stuff. Yeah. So, so the discipline leads we vote for, feature team leads will be appointed by the exec board. And we're doing that because feature teams are kind of supposed to be a little bit more mobile. Like, so you can take a person from one team, send them over to another team, stuff like that. As far as how we, like the tools that we use to stay up to date and all that stuff, basically we saw before, Beach Sync, which is like the school's way of organizing clubs and seeing who they want to give money to. So sign up for Beach Sync so we can get money. Facebook, because we talk a lot there, and Trello because the same. And you gotta sign up for all of them. All right, cool. So, designing your first game. So for a lot of you here, if you decide to pitch it, turn in a game pitch, it'll be your first time designing a game, like really designing a game. And turning it into a game pitch is pretty difficult, and especially in VGDA, because there are a few extra things that you need to consider that you don't need to consider necessarily outside of the industry, or in the industry. We make a game in 11 weeks. We go from you pitch a game, and 11 weeks later, we publish that game. That is not a lot of time. So, no 2D Worlds of Warcraft, none of that stuff. We get it every once in a while. We haven't gotten it for a while, actually, so it's good for people who learn it. No one here is a professional, for the most part. I was a professional for like 2 months, but whatever. All right. No one here is a professional, and you also need to really focus on like what the core of your game is. We'll be watching a video about we'll be watching a video that does a much better job of explaining. But for those of you who want to get into, don't worry about it. People come in late all the time. All right. So. It's really good practice for those of you who want to get into game design, gameplay design, and it's really going to be a great opportunity for those of you who want to get into our experimental team, which we'll be talking more about later. And I promise it's a good thing to practice, even if your pitch doesn't get voted for. So right now, I'll hope this YouTube video actually works, and yeah. We watch a lot of extra credit videos. You should too. I see a hand. Yeah. Oh, okay, cool.
During the last 2 episodes, we've stressed how important it is to make your first game something small. But this is so important that this time we're going to dedicate the entire episode to it. This will serve you in good stead not only when you're creating your first game, but also when prototyping for anything else you do. In development, there's a term called minimum viable product, which refers to the smallest thing you can possibly make that'll still give you useful data once released. That should be your goal. Even when James is called in to work on a multi-million-dollar project that has a development time of 3 years, one of the first things he'll tell them is that if they don't have a prototype up in the first 3 weeks, they're doing it wrong. When you can actually play your game, you'll discover all sorts of things that you didn't account for when you were just designing the game in your head. You'll find edge cases where your mechanics are broken, or places where your game just falls apart. You'll find what's really engaging, rather than just trying to build something that you hope is engaging. And you'll discover what will add the most to the experience you're creating. Okay, so you've heard me say cut and cut and cut, and that when you think you're done cutting, you're probably not done cutting. But you do have to stop cutting sometime. So how do we determine when we're down to that minimum viable product? Well, this one is a bit tough, and you're going to get better at it with experience, but the basic idea is to find the absolute minimum set of features that won't affect core development. If you could cut a feature and still technically ship your game, it's probably not part of your minimum viable product. But because this is as much an art as it is a science, let's run through some examples so we're all on the same footing. Let's start with Super Mario Bros. What do we need in order to test if the fundamental gameplay of Super Mario Bros. Is engaging? What's the minimum that we can build and test before deciding if what we have is something worth expanding upon with additional features? Well, do we need Koopas? No. Fire flowers? Nope. Bowser? Nope. Pipes that you can climb down? No. Pipes at all? No. Water levels, mushrooms, hidden blocks, extra lives? No. So what do we need? Well, for Mario, the minimum viable product is probably one level where you can move, jump, and fall into pits. That's it. If just that much is engaging, you'll be able to add all those other features later and make it even better. But if running along and jumping over pits doesn't feel good, Super Mario Bros. Simply doesn't work, no matter how many extra features you throw in. So you've got to make sure that that core is working first. Although, in this particular case, I'd probably throw in 2 other features that aren't strictly necessary, but they will make a big difference. First, a trigger which resets the level if the player falls into the pit, just so testing is easier, and to make sure that this aspect isn't just unpalatable to players. And second, the ability to change from walking to running, since the Mario jump mechanic is so dependent on the run button. But that's it. 1 level, 3 features, and you've got a game. Don't believe something this simple could be engaging? Well, set the character to auto-run and you've basically built Cannibalt. When building your first game, or prototyping a larger one, you'll find that you can strip out all of the content, all of the things that aren't rules that control the play itself, but rather elements that are created out of those rules. So enemy types, levels, different weapons, all of that can usually get cut. You might want to include one thing from each category just to test the larger rules, but no more than that, because it's really easy to get mired down in making all of that content. And the truth is, games with lots of content but without a solid foundation are rarely good. Perhaps worse, as a creator, when your game's packed with content, it's generally harder to figure out why the foundation's not working. If you test your prototype with a lot of content thrown in, it'll be harder for players to put their fingers on exactly what it is that needs improvement, as all of that content just clutters what's wrong. And they'll be more likely to tell you about bad pieces of content rather than the underlying reasons why that content didn't create a positive experience. It just adds complexity in a situation where you really need to be honing your game's core foundation. Okay, so let's try another one. Old school JRPGs. Now this one can fool people because most designers tend to think of these games in terms of content rather than gameplay. It's easy to get caught up in the story you want to tell, or the massive lists of items and enemies. But if the player has to slog through 80 hours of weak gameplay in order to access that story you've got in mind, you've done your player a disservice. In fact, that's some of what's contributed to the decline in the popularity of traditional JRPGs this decade. So take a game like Final Fantasy IV. Here, I would cut everything but the menu-based combat system. I would even cut out all the graphics. Monsters can just be words on the screen. That's really all you need to test the system. Now, many of you might object, saying, but that doesn't work. I can't make that engaging without the content. This is actually great, though. It immediately tells us that we should probably find a more robust system. Alright, let's try one more. This time, let's look at Ikaruga. Here, we could probably cut down to the color switching mechanic, an enemy which switches color randomly and shoots random bullet patterns, or maybe randomly chooses from a small list of pre-built bullet patterns, as that wouldn't be too hard to construct. Also, you'll need the ability for the player to move and to shoot, a counter which ticks upward as you shoot the enemy, and a death mechanic that simply resets the game when the player gets hit. This will get you all the player behavior you need to find out if your game's engaging. Your players will try to dodge and shoot the enemy while attempting to take advantage of the color swapping system as much as possible. That's all you need. Hopefully that helps you frame your thinking about just how small your first project should be. Now I'm going to give you a quick and dirty list of game genres ordered by how difficult they are to create a minimum viable product for. And this is only going to apply to digital games. Some of these genres are actually much easier to build pen and paper or board games for. Also, this list isn't by any means absolute. As game engines change, this list is going to become outdated, but it should give you a place to start at least. So, game genres in order of difficulty to produce a minimum viable product, from simplest to most difficult. Racing game, top-down shooter, 2D platformer, color matching puzzle game, 2D puzzle platformer, 3D platformer, FPS, JRPG, fighting game, action adventure, Western RPG, RTS. I'm leaving out point-and-click adventure games here, as those games are entirely built out of content. So while getting a point-and-click game up and running is relatively easy, getting anything together that'll actually tell you if you're onto something engaging is a lot harder. You'll notice I'm also leaving out anything networked or multiplayer, as that generally multiplies the complexity. Honestly, I would just recommend avoiding multiplayer stuff entirely for your first game. And again, don't think of these genres in terms of the games you know. When I say racing game, don't think Gran Turismo. Think 2 gray blocks on a black background with acceleration and collision mechanics. That is all you need to hit that minimum viable product or prototype stage where you can really start to get it out there and play it and learn what's needed to improve it. You can always build from there later and add more cool features, but your game will be better off for having spent the time testing and refining the foundation of your game idea. This is way more productive than dreaming up a project which is far too big to ever tackle. Hopefully that helps you decide where to start and how far to scope down. Join us on the next episode for what to do once you're done with your game. See you then.
So yeah, that's an idea of how to kind of evaluate what your MVP should be. I guess maybe you can think of it as like with the Mario example. I'm just gonna go with that because pretty much everyone knows that. Mario's like, it's like really core mechanics, running and jumping, because you know you have the jumping, but then running allows you to dramatically affect what you can do with the jumping. So we're looking for this semester, for those of you who are new, we're looking for a very low level of complexity. For those of you who are returning, we're looking for a very low level of complexity. We've been getting too crazy. All right, cool. So yeah, now as far as what is complexity, and then kind of its counterpoint, depth, we have another video for you. Yeah, cool.
Wildlife rescue workers at Open Apple Farm.
Actually, really quick, does anyone have any questions about like MVPs or how to make one or like how to kind of figure that out?
So I have a question about something else.
Sorry, you gotta speak up.
Yeah, it's a question about something else. So we can send pitches to you by Sunday,
Yeah,
by what's the email?
president
Right? President?
dot VGDA.
Because like I'm in the middle of like sending a pitch right now.
Okay,
Like
president dot VGDA at gmail.com. So also for the game pitches, we have a game pitch sheet. We have a format that we want y'all to follow because it's a format that we've kind of developed over the years to really give everyone who's on the team the most information possible in the least amount of space. Because like taking that, I mean, we'll talk a little more about that later, but yeah, so there's a, if you'd like to send me a really quick idea, you can do that, you guys are fine. I'll give you like quick evaluations, like, yes, you can turn that into a game pitch. What?
MGS5, better.
Yeah, we're not doing that. So you can send me really quick ideas, and I can be like, maybe, I don't know, no, this is totally unsuitable, yes, definitely make that a game pitch. You can do that if you'd like. However, what is due by Sunday is the fully finished game pitch. And that's up on our Facebook already. We'll bump that up to the top of our page. If you're looking for it though, on like your phones, one thing that's weird about Facebook is that pinned posts don't show up by default unless you like scroll to the top and hit show pinned post. So we'll be pinning the one that has a game pitch because that's what we're doing right now. And yeah, that's all I just need to know. Okay, any other questions about the game pitch? Or like MVP, anything like that? Yeah.
I was wondering what genres have you guys tackled?
Yeah, so the 3 games that we've finished, actually, I'll deal Persephone into the mix too. So, because that was a lot of fun. All right, so genre, I'll do kind of, when I'm talking about genre, I'll talk both about like the gameplay mechanics and I'll talk about the kind of narrative genre as well. So Persephone, that was our first like full semester, first time tackling big game pitch. It was like a dungeon crawler RTS puzzle solver, which was way too hard, and it was kind of set in various ancient magical histories. Yeah, it was Underworld. You're like, it was cool. We'll talk about it later. You'll hear about Persephone. We also talk about Persephone. We love Persephone. All right. The next game was The Last Arrow, which was a top-down shooter, kind of set in like feudal, not Asia. So like kind of like a hybrid of various Asian aesthetics, but in a fantasy world. And that was a top-down shooter. You're an archer, but the catch was that you could, I made a bad pun without meaning to. Usually I mean to. All right, so it was, you could catch arrows as they're being fired at you. So you start off with one arrow and you're like surrounded by enemy archers and they're just like trying to fill you with arrows, and you can actually catch arrows, and that became really awesome because you could use your arrow catching mechanic to give you like invincibility frames so you could actually defend yourself with the catch, and it was really good. Anyway, And then next was Parasomnia, which was kind of like a stealth horror game, side-scrolling game. And then the last one we did the one we did last semester was Echoes of Cocoon, which was another fantasy kind of exploration puzzle solver. It was like a procedurally generated cave, so the cave was always new every time you went through it, and then you solved like puzzles and stuff like that. And you went and explored all the pretty stuff we made. So yeah, those are the genres. Does that help at all? Okay, cool. Any other questions about MVP, anything like that so far? Yes?
Do you do games exclusively for PC, or are you open to like mobile?
We basically ask that all of the game pitches be workable on mobile, because what we really want is to be like, you sit down and interview, and they're like, so what have you done? And you're like, bam, my phone is like filled with these bloated games that we've made.
We got the file size down.
We got the file size down.
They're all about 100 megs.
About 100 megs, as opposed to like 1.6 gigs. Yeah, that's stuff. Yeah. So we'll be teaching both the programmers and the artists how to deal with that over the course of this semester. What's up?
I'm working on that tutorial.
Awesome, cool. Yeah, so Josh is working on a tutorial for that. What's up? We also designed around touch controls. So think about what's going to actually work in like a touch environment. We also asked that the games all be like side-scrolly of some kind. Like Binding of Isaac side-scrollies. Wait, no, that doesn't work. Well, sort of works.
So it only scrolls vertically.
As long as it's like side-on, it's like the side-on like perspective. And that's to make it so that the, because we still haven't set up like a 3D pipeline yet, so we can't do 3D games. But we did top-down for The Last Arrow, and that provided to be something that wasn't super useful for our artists.
Yeah.
So, any other questions? I mean, I can answer questions all day. Like, don't even worry about it. Yeah.
Also, I was just wondering what main software development tools you use.
Yeah. So as far as source control, we use GitHub. So for those of you who don't know what source control is, it's like how to make it so the programmers don't break each other's code, sort of. And then as far as the actual engine that we make the game in, we use Unity. And that was Unity because I can't enunciate. Unity. Yeah, there we go. Okay, cool. All right. Anyone else? Yeah. Yeah, always. Yeah, we go really far out of our way to use anyone who wants to be involved in the process. When we worked on Persephone, for example, we had like an archaeologist, which is not someone who's like you'd normally think of as being on a game development team, but it worked out really well. It actually gave us a much more authentic kind of like ancient world feel. But yeah, user experience, need it, want it, love it, must have it. Any other questions? Do we need user experience designers? Yeah, we have a pitch workshop tomorrow. That wasn't in my slide. We have a pitch workshop tomorrow. So we have alternate meeting times, Fridays from 12 to 5. They're going to be in FA4. There will be a post about this tonight. It's going to be in FA4 307. That's also we'll be holding our what we call dev jams. So those are meetings that happen every week once development has started, where it's just extra time for you to work on stuff or meet with people and kind of discuss new ideas or review what you're working on, stuff like that. Really helpful. Yeah, but I mean, they're optional. They're really helpful. Anyone else? Okay, cool. So I'm going to actually start this Dawn commercial.
I'm Don, tough on grease, yet gentle. Don,
Ducky! And then a truck just runs over him.
Go to Facebook.com, Don Saves Wildlife.
Have we really not done this one yet? Alright, I'm sure we've touched on it many times, but this topic hasn't really been given the full treatment, so let's fix that. Today we're going to talk about how to balance depth and complexity in video games. Or more accurately, we're going to talk about what the proper relationship between the two is. Basically, it is the designer's job to get the maximum amount of depth out of the minimum amount of complexity. I could probably just end this episode right there, but just for kicks, let's unpack what that means, starting with depth. Depth is simply the number of emergent, experientially different possibilities or meaningful choices that come out of one rule set. So, for example, tic-tac-toe is light on depth, because the rules don't create a plethora of experientially different possibilities for the player. Early shooters often struggled with this as well, because even though many minor variations could occur, they were often not very experientially different. Even though it was computationally different to be shooting someone from 8 pixels to the right of where you did last time, experientially it was about the same. The first solution to this problem was different weapons and different enemy types, as this allowed different combat scenarios to play out, bringing truly experientially different variations. It really did feel like a meaningful choice to decide whether to use your machine gun or your rocket launcher for any given combat problem. More modern online FPSs have the whole leveling and kit system in place to give the level of depth necessary to sustain long-term online play. These systems help create an even wider array of possible meaningful choices for the player. But depth just isn't depth if the player can't utilize it. Where depth comes in is in the player's ability to think around and use the options the rule set presents within the context of play, to make meaningful choices with the rules presented to them. This is what we're talking about when we say that first-order optimal strategies can potentially negate a game's depth. This claim might be a little contentious, but I'll say it. Depth is entirely a mental activity. If players can't think around, should I use my rocket launcher or my machine gun, if they can't make a conscious choice about it, then there is no depth. Whether it be something like League of Legends, Magic the Gathering, or Call of Duty, the depth comes in the player's ability to make meaningful choices with the options the rules present to them, and their ability to learn from the outcomes of those choices. Without those two components, you don't have depth. So now let's talk about complexity. In the most basic layman's sense, complexity is the mental burden put on the player by the game. In a slightly more expanded sense, mental burden can be thought of in terms of data the player has to store, the rules they have to process, and calculations they have to make a meaningful choice. So clearly, by this definition, rules themselves can be more or less complex, but since that varies from game to game, what besides the rules themselves influences how complex a game is? First is obviously the user interface or user experience. The more cluttered a screen is with options, the less intuitive their placement, look, shape, or color is, the more data the player has to store in their head, rather than simply being able to utilize these elements on the fly without memorizing or decrypting them. The prime example of this is clearly Dwarf Fortress. Great game, nowhere near as popular as it would be if it weren't artificially complex. We've sort of covered this bit before, so I'll leave it at this. There's no excuse for a counterintuitive user interface. Don't make your UI a mess. It's just like we said with tutorials. If you can craft how your player learns your game, you can reduce the amount of data they have to know, making it easier for them to process your rules, and even giving them a leg up on making some of the calculations necessary for meaningful choices. A good tutorial reduces your game's complexity, meaning you can afford to have more of it. This seems obvious, but it's often the most complex games that have the worst tutorials, because the game's complexity makes those tutorials really hard to crack. But if you're struggling with how to teach someone the ins and outs of your own game, you've probably made it too complex. Next, let's look at some of the less obvious ones. First, let's talk about how the pace of play affects complexity. Fundamentally, the question is, how many mental calculations per second are you asking of your player? Consider your decision-making process in a shooter compared to a turn-based tactics game. While there are often a lot more calculations to do and rules to process in the latter, turn-based tactics games are not overwhelmingly more complex than most modern shooters because of the pace at which you get to make those decisions. If you had a shooter that required the same level of data retention, rules processing, and calculation that most tactics games do, it would be utterly unmanageable. It would be fatally complex. So when you're thinking about what level of complexity is viable for your player, really think about the pace of play. How many decisions are you asking them to make per second? That'll tell you how complex those decisions can be. Next, let's talk about irreducible complexity. Grand strategy games, by paradox, have come up a couple times in our Games You Might Not Have Tried series, because they're always interesting. But they usually share a common problem. You have to learn all of the rules before you can even start to play. If your tutorial can't be split up and distributed over time, if your player has to know everything before they can even begin to play, you've created a rule set with irreducible complexity. And this puts a much greater mental burden on the player, as there's no way for them to practice and get familiar with individual rules before having to understand how they all interact as a whole. Moreover, it often means that the play itself can't be segmented into smaller mental tasks, which neutralizes one of our most powerful human faculties for reducing complexity. So let's bring it all back to the main question. How are depth and complexity related? Well, since depth is only depth to the extent that the player can play with it, even if a rule set allows for a vast amount of experientially different outcomes, a game's complexity limits its depth. We talked about Dwarf Fortress earlier, a game where 90% of the people I know who've tried it experienced little to none of its depth because of its complexity. It's a beautiful, unbelievably deep game, but the few people I know who didn't just quit after 15 minutes of trying to figure out what was going on, thereby experiencing none of its depth, still often didn't get much past the basics before giving up a week or two later. Depth is bought with complexity, but complexity also restricts depth. You'll often hear designers talk about elegance in design. Elegant design is simply design with a high depth to complexity ratio. Games like Go. Many designers I've encountered hold up elegance as the ultimate goal of design. And I don't personally believe this is true. I believe engagement should be that goal. But since complexity is kind of like a finite resource with which to buy depth for your game, I do believe it is the designer's job to look for the most bang for your buck in terms of depth to complexity. So, to answer the statement as it is usually posed on message boards, no, more complex games aren't better. Deeper ones are. I hope that helps. We'll see you next week.
All right, so that's a lot of information. He talks really fast, and yeah, it's crazy. So if you have any questions about this, you can ask today. You can ask at any point in time. I mean, really any time, although Sunday is the due date, so preferably if you're trying to get a game pitch in for this semester, ask before then. But you just have to have a finished game pitch turned in by Sunday. Not a beautiful game pitch, not a perfect game pitch. It just needs to be done. Because we need to know that, because what we're going to do is in the intervening time, and the sooner you can get it turned into us, the better. But in the intervening time before next Thursday, when you'll present your game pitches and we'll vote on them, we'll spend a lot of time working with you to really ramp up the kind of amount of depth and really what everyone can get out of the game. Because that's one of the criteria, is you have to make sure that you are pitching a game that everyone is going to want to work on, both because your peers are going to be voting on whether or not they want to work on this game, but also because that's the point of VGDA. Everyone needs to get something out of the game. VGDA is not about making the best blockbusting AAA game in the world. We are about using games as a teaching method. So design your games with that in mind. But again, as far as a lot of people like to have things kind of be quantified for them. So as far as kind of core gameplay mechanics or controls or whatever, it seems that about 2 has been a really good number for us. Mario is run and jump. You can combine them in a number of ways that makes the game really fun. Last Arrow was shoot, catch. Really fun. All right, so again, great practice for those who want to get into game design. Really great practice for everyone, because the more you know about how design works, the more you've experienced that, you're just going to be better in whatever field you go into. Oh, I don't know how to do this. All right, moving on. All right, so we've been talking about this a lot. We've just got a few more slides to go. So the design doc is basically there, again, to condense all of the complexity of making a new game into something that's readable for the discipline leads to interpret into kind of the game that's going to be best for VGDA. And also because we end up going back to your design document to make sure that we are making decisions that you voted for. So because that kind of ends up taking a really long time, we ask that all game pitches be turned in by Sunday night. So we have as much time as possible to turn all of the game pitches we get into games that we legitimately want to work on. We had, I think, 4 or 5 game pitches last semester, and they were phenomenal because we spent a lot of time working with the pitchers to make something that was really great. So, actually pitching. Even the best ideas need to be explained well. You need to convince people that your product is great. Even if it's great, if you can't convince people that it is, it's not. We highly recommend that you prepare a PowerPoint. All of the winning game pitches have had PowerPoints, had visuals associated with them. Roughly you have about 5 minutes. You can do less, but generally 5 minutes, people end up using a lot of that 5 minutes, and can go over sometimes. But basically what you'll do is you'll kind of talk about what your main mechanics are, how you anticipate they'll work, and you'll be going over maybe ideas you had about the plot, ideas you had about the art style, showing us some visual stuff that you've put together. A lot of that we'll go over with you, and you'll kind of pick it up from the game pitch, I promise. The game pitch sheet that you'll be filling out. All right, there's one more super complicated thing that I need to go over before I'm done. Once we're done here, we'll be splitting up into our discipline teams. For those of you who want to be more on the administration side of things, who want to help kind of run the club, you'll be hanging out with Chi. Yeah, she'll get you all signed up. But everyone else will direct you to your discipline leads, because a lot of the disciplines are up for grabs for these people who have been in the club, who have kind of been sub-leads or leads in the past of those positions. Yeah, Emily, do you want to say something?
Narrative and gameplay.
What?
Narrative and gameplay system.
They'll be separate. Oh, well, narrative will go to Elijah. And then gameplay will go to Peter. All right. Yeah, and Peter, do you have a laptop today?
I do not.
Mine's slow as fuck. Well, we'll let you get signed up on this one. Oh, you can use someone's. Okay, cool. Yeah. So can you get to, so discipline leads, if you can get to that master spreadsheet, just so that we can do that quickly. I like it. All right, cool. We'll send you on your merry way soon. Okay, so anyway, quick break for more questions, if we have any. Because, yeah.
So you were explaining how for the shooting game, you kind of just sat there and shot and got caught, right?
Well, you also moved around, but it's like such a minor.
Translate well to thumb at all.
Yeah, but
Well, yeah, it did.
so how did you work with narrative in that? Do you have a complex story? Because I was thinking about narrative.
Yeah.
How in depth is narrative going to go into?
Well, for that particular game, we did not get as much narrative into it as we wanted to. We had an idea for a story, we had like cut scenes and all that, and we had to cut all that in like the last couple days because we couldn't get it done. It was really sad.
Ask us about that story.
But yeah, so we ended up going with walls of text for our story. The story was, I like the story, but for all of our games, we make sure to make room for all of the disciplines to be involved. Is that kind of what you were asking about? All right, cool, yeah.
There are people fighting.
When are the interviews? Like what day, what time?
Tuesday, 4 to 6.
4 to 6? Oh.
Yeah, because so our general meetings, obviously, 4 to 6 on Thursdays. Our executive meetings, which people who are on the executive board who are going to be leads and be able to attend, are from 4 to 6. If you really want to run for something and you can't make it to that, let us know. Or you can come up and let me know, and we'll try to figure out if we can make any kind of exception. Yeah. Oh, those were just hands waving. Okay. Any other questions about game pitches, anything like that? Anything else about the club?
So just talk to you about quick game pitches.
What's up?
Just talk to you about quick game pitches.
Probably email me about the game pitch because I want to make sure that I have time to actually, one, send it to a few other people, and also like actually give you a response. It's not just me saying no. Okay. Yes.
You said that there's a forum for game pitches, like
Yes.
for the format. Where can you find that?
Yeah. So right now it's on our Facebook page. If you look up Video Game Development Association on Facebook, it's a group. Sorry, it's a group page, not a page. There's a difference, and it frustrates me. We have a VGDA page, which is like 2 years behind being updated. And then we have a Facebook group page, which will blow up your phone because it's just all the time. But yeah, it's there, and we'll also be pinning it to the top of the page at some point today. Yes.
Keeping a little late. I'm just
Yeah.
curious what kind of necessary information to get started.
Yeah. So I don't have enough time to go through all that, but this whole presentation, like everything that I've been saying is basically written down word for word on the presentation. And that's going to be uploaded onto our Facebook page as well in the same post as the game pitch. Any other questions? No? All right, buckle up. So, we're doing this new thing. We're calling it the experimental team because we realized that the big development team can really teach people a lot, but it can't teach people everything that people want to know. Like, no one solution can teach people everything that we want them to learn in VGDA. So the big development team is great because you learn how to work in a large group environment. You learn how to work in a large interdisciplinary group. And you can't really learn that anywhere else at Cal State Long Beach. And it's super important because basically every single industry is pretty interdisciplinary. Like, even fine art industries, you're like, okay, well, you're working with art curators and stuff like that. So all of these people who have different expertises, they talk a completely different language. Like, those of you who weren't programmers, when I was like, GitHub is for source control, you were like, I don't know what that means. Different languages entirely, and we kind of teach you, even if we don't teach you everything about those languages, we do teach you how to learn those languages very quickly. So when you go off to another industry, you'll be able to pick it up. Also, just how to communicate in general. Like the steps that you need to take, the extra work that you need to take when you're not just in a group project of like 3 people and you're the only one doing any work anyway, so why bother? Like, that's the Cal State Long Beach experience that I've gone through. VGDA, really, like, a lot of people are working, you need to be in contact with them a lot, and it really trains you in ways that the rest of the school just doesn't. But one thing that the big group doesn't do as much is it doesn't really teach you how to work in like a really small, really like insular team that needs to be self-sufficient. So what we're going to do is we're going to be having a small team of our more experienced developers. We're going to put them together, and they're going to put out something that's a little bit more complicated. And like because they have more experience, they'll be able to do stuff that we haven't tried to do yet. So they'll be kind of like doing this research and development, and like they'll be figuring out some stuff, and they'll be able to put it on the resume. But also the benefit for the big development team is that they'll figure out, oh, this is an effective way of putting together a 3D pipeline, like a 3D art pipeline, because that's something we'd really like to do eventually. So they'll still be connected. They'll still be keeping up to date with each other. They'll be working on slightly different projects, but the team's going to be small. So we'll have an application process that's basically a semester long. And it's going to be for people, because we're not going to start the team this semester, we're going to start the team next semester. So this semester, what it's going to be is if you'd like to try out for the experimental team, you can let us know. And then basically we'll spend the rest of the semester evaluating you. Seeing if you're kind of at the level that the experimental team needs. If you'd like to be considered, email us at development.vgda@gmail.com. I'll be going more into that right now. So, experimental application sounds like the application itself is experimental. It sort of is. This is the first time we've done this, so we'll see. All right. So I didn't want to get like too much into it because I've already been thrown a lot of information at you. I've been talking for basically an hour and 20 minutes. So we'll give you more information as time goes along, but basically this is some core stuff that you need to know. What makes you eligible to be on the experimental team is if you have proven these things. An ability to work and be accountable remotely, because the experimental team isn't going to be working so much out of the general meetings as the big dev team is. They're going to be kind of a little bit more spread out, working from home a little bit more. So an ability to work and be accountable remotely is going to be super important for that. Communication is a big thing, because we don't want anyone who's an amazing artist and who can't take any criticism or programming or whatever, any of those things. So communicates often and does so in a way that they actually promote more communication. Because what can happen? You have someone like me who can be really loud, obnoxious at times, and it makes other people not want to talk as much. So I don't talk like this in a small, well, I sometimes talk like this in a small group. Anyway, it's bad, I need to work on it. All right, so communicating in a way that encourages communication from your peers, prompting them for their ideas, making sure you're not interrupting them, stuff like that. And these are just great practices to build up anyway, but these are the things that like, if you will need to have if you want to be on the experimental team. Initiative, big one, because the experimental team is going to be kind of relying on people to make their own decisions about a lot of decisions. So candidates will have proven that they can do creative problem solving, and also takes the initiative to draw attention to problems. Like, hey, I don't think this is working. Should this be like this? And most of the time when that happens, we're like, no, that's totally broken. Thank you for showing that to us. But it's a difficult thing to do because it's scary. You know, I'm up on this stage and be like, you wrote the date wrong. So yeah, that's good stuff. All right. And then lastly, expertise. Basically, it's, can you make work that doesn't require someone else to spend hours revising your work? That's it. So these are the 4 basic categories that we're looking at, that we're evaluating people on. And then one more thing that I didn't put it in the slideshow, but so people who are on the experimental team you can apply as many times as you want. You can apply each semester, that's fine. But if you've been on the experimental team one semester, you are not eligible the semester after that. So it'll be alternate because we want to give as many people as possible the chance to experience this. And like, we have so many great developers in here that we know that there are going to be some really close calls. So we'll probably get more than 12 people applying to this. And it seems that 12 is about the number of people that we'll have on that team. And we know that there are going to be some hard decisions there. And so we want to make this opportunity to everyone, because if you stay in VGDA, you will get to a point where you like have all of these skills. Okay, now that's it. Questions, comments, feedback, puns. No, well, yeah.
Is that really it?
What?
Is that really it?
No. Well, it's mostly it of me talking. I'm sure I'll need to throw some stuff in later, and I'm sure Emily will remind me of what those things are. All right. Anything else? Oh, yeah, there was one thing. Haha. So dues. I didn't put this in the PowerPoint. I'll update that and then post that accordingly. But dues are due in 2 weeks. So not when we pitch, but the week after, because that's when we like really start. And again, if you cannot put together $10 by Thursday, September 15th, if you absolutely can't do it, let us know. We'll work with you. It's okay. But yeah, so I think that's pretty much it. We're sure? No questions? Positive? Okay. Either I was clearer than I thought I was, or y'all are lying. Yeah, I knew it.
This guy here.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so all of this will be up on our Facebook page. And, let me actually really quickly get back to the Facebook page. Yeah.
I posted the Trello tutorial.
Okay, cool. So the Trello tutorial was just posted on there. You will need to know how to use Trello. If you're on the development or the administration team, both of those teams will be using that to stay organized. But these are the links to our Trello page. You're not going to be able to see anything if you follow this link, but getting yourself signed up for Trello is going to be a good thing. But that's our Facebook page. Just ask to be invited to the group. We'll approve you. And yeah, okay, so if we don't have any more questions, okay, you're working through Ken. Ken, can you like move over there? Michael, you're good where you are. And then Peter, that's fine. And then Elijah, follow Ken. And then Cameron, why don't we get you over to an edge over there? And then, so that's narrative, that's technical, that's sound, that's gameplay. Right, we still need, oh, and you're doing art still, so maybe over here, maybe up here. What's up, Peter?
I might have missed this, but
Probably not.
You mentioned that people can be on multiple teams.
I didn't. Okay, yeah. So a lot of people come in. A lot of people come into VGDA. They want to be on the development team, or they want to be on the administration team, or whatever, and they don't know what discipline they really want to be on, or they know they want to be on multiple disciplines. That's totally fine. There was a legend who walks among us. His first name is Doan. His last name is Doan. And he is a tech artist. He does a lot of our UI work. He does a lot of our programming. Man is a monster. And yeah, he puts in a lot of work, and so he gets to really high levels in our accomplishment of art and technical. And it's great. We love it. We love him. He's not here today. You better come back. I'll drag him back somehow. But yeah, so you can be on multiple teams if you want. You can work in multiple disciplines if you want. Working on multiple feature teams is going to be a little bit trickier. Probably it's mostly going to be the sound people that are doing that, because there's usually not very many of them. But unless you're like, it'll be pretty rare that you're working on multiple feature teams at the same time.
Did you talk about the level thing, or is that?
What?
Did you talk about the level thing?
No, we'll do that later. It's too much. We have a level up system. We gamify our club, but you'll learn about it later because no. That's a technical term. No? Okay, cool. So this is how it's going to work out. If you want to be on the development team, that is, if you want to work towards the process of making a video game this semester, we're going to get you all on a master roster of our development team so that we can be organized and that we can really make sure that you get the most out of VGDA possible. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to be splitting up based on discipline. So the artists are going to be getting signed in with Josh. The sound people are going to be getting signed in with Cameron. Programmers are going to be signed in with Michael. Narrative people, so writers, storytellers, whatnot, Elijah. And then gameplay people are going to be with Peter. Yeah, do the wave. All right. Do the worm next time, it'll be better. All right. So yeah, and if you'd like, you can pay dues. Give it to your leads, give it to the discipline people, and they will check you off for having paid. And yeah, again, $10. It's due in 2 weeks. If you can't put it together by 2 weeks from now and you don't get back to us, that's fine, sort of, but we won't be able to actually assign you work because we want your game credit to kind of be associated with full involvement of the club, and we don't, it just gets sticky. Okay. I mean, do we have any questions about dues? Because I didn't really go